Move the ball. It's sticking to me.
What's up, Pag Nation? It's Pag Gaming here. If you saw my last video, you saw me talk about the most underrated players in NBA 2K18. And now we're going to switch it up and talk about the most overrated players in NBA 2K18. I noticed that a lot of you did not like that I was talking about statistics, so I'm not going to talk about statistics at all in this video. No stats involved at all. To start this list off, at number 5 is the worst team in the NBA on paper, and it is Dedmon, their center, at a 77 overall. Now, Dedmon was a Spur, and I watched a lot of him playing, and he's a great defender, and he can score a little bit, but not a lot. And that's really it, and he can rebound-ish. But a 77 is a little high comparing him to, for example, Tristan Thompson, who's a 78 overall. And Tristan Thompson's an amazing rebounder, an amazing defender. A couple more examples of players I was thinking about is Cody Zeller is a 77 overall. He's also a center. Great defense, great rebounding, good blocks, and he can score. And he's just as good as Dedmon. That doesn't sound right. And you got Nerlens Noel, again, great defender and everything. He can score too and is barely better than Dedmon. It just doesn't make sense. And the last one I wanted to compare him to is Tyson Chandler, who's a 76 overall. He's actually worse than him. And yet Tyson Chandler gets way more rebounds. He's a way better defender. He's pretty similar to Dedmon. They catch lobs and they get little simple baskets. So if that's the case, Tyson Chandler should have at least been Dedmon, or at least a little better, considering he's better at defense. So I think Dedmon was just a little, they gave him a little high of a rating just because he's on a very poor team. At number 4 is Joe Ingles, and I know a lot of you are going to be arguing with me if you're a Jazz fan. You're like, Joe Ingles is amazing, and he's a great defender and a great shooter. Sure, he is. But they gave him a 78 overall. And I want to compare him with a couple players that I would take over him in a second. Marcus Morris is a 77 overall. How is Marcus Morris considered worse than Joe Ingles? It's not possible. Wilson Chandler, who's been consistently good, is the same as Joe Ingles. I don't see it. I think he can do everything Joe Ingles can, and he's athletic. Same thing goes for Tobias Harris, and actually he scores a little bit better in my opinion. I don't see how he could be the same level as Joe Ingles, when Joe Ingles really should be lower. And last one I think is just ridiculous, that there's no way that you should even be close to each other, is Trevor Ariza and Joe Ingles. Trevor Ariza is an amazing player, great defender, great three-point shooter, and athletic. If this is the case, then Trevor Ariza should be like an 80 or an 81, not a 78. So Joe Ingles definitely should have been probably like a 75, 76 overall. At number 3 is Gary Harris from the Nuggets. It's not fair because I have not watched enough Gary Harris, but I know that there's some players that I just know are better than him. And that's why I think an 81 is just way too high of a rating. Let me show you some examples. Zach LaVine is better than Gary Harris. I'd argue in every single way. Maybe three-point shooting, obviously, but even then, Zach LaVine's a good three-point shooter. So, being worse than Gary Harris makes no sense at all. This one's laughable. Dwayne Wade's only considered 1 overall better than Gary Harris. I know Dwayne Wade's on the decline of his career, but Dwayne Wade is not even on the same level of Gary Harris. Dwayne Wade's way up there. Dion Waiters is considered worse than Gary Harris. I don't see it. Sorry. And one more person that's considered worse than Gary Harris, and another one that's just laughable, is Eric Gordon. How is the 6th man of the year worse than Gary Harris? I refuse to believe that that's even the case. I don't like to put up stats, but compare their stats. Eric Gordon's better. At number 2 is Greg Monroe, 80 overall. I've seen a lot of Greg Monroe, and I can tell you that he's definitely on the decline of his career, which is weird. But he's just not been doing as good as he used to. I don't see how Marcin Gortat, 78 overall, is worse, that much worse, than Greg Monroe, when they're basically the same player, honestly. Except Marcin Gortat plays better defense and gets more rebounds. Clint Capella is almost the same player as Greg Monroe, except they consider Greg Monroe better. It just doesn't make sense. How is he 79 overall, Greg Monroe's 80 when they're basically the exact same player? And you can't tell me that Greg Monroe is almost as good as Pau Gasol. I refuse to believe that. Pau Gasol's an amazing player, a veteran. Even though he's on the decline of his career, he's still amazing. And at number 1 is Austin Rivers at an 80 overall. They gave him an 80 overall. I know he's a hard worker. I know he started to score a little bit more last season. An 80 overall is way too high. We'll start off with his teammate Lou Williams. How are you almost as good as Lou Williams? That's not... No, I refuse. And then someone who's considered worse than Austin Rivers is Marcus Smart. Amazing defender. Amazing basketball player. just does so much things, and you think, how is Marcus Smart worse than Austin Rivers? I know he's not a shooting guard, but D'Angelo Russell is compared to Austin Rivers at the same level. D'Angelo Russell's probably way better than Austin Rivers. Let's just be real. They shouldn't even be close to each other. They made Victor Oladipo worse than Austin Rivers. And then finally, the last one that I like to compare. Harrison Barnes is barely better than Austin Rivers, and that's just the biggest lie you could tell somebody. Even Dirk. I know Dirk's on the decline too. How is Austin Rivers as good as Dirk? It's wrong. But that's it for this video, guys. I know a lot of this is opinion based. So, did I miss anybody? Leave it in the comments below. And I know these ratings will change, and of course this will change throughout the season. But if you like my channel, please give my channel a sub, and I'll see you guys next time.
Move the ball and stick it to